I recently tested an 800 CFM carburetor on the GMC truck, and that little small block just did not like that big of a carburetor, didn't meter fuel very well. Well, some folks said, doesn't matter. CFM doesn't matter. It's only what the engine demands. Well, we're going to find out today on a 950 CFM Edelbrock race carburetor. Let's see how bad it runs. If you haven't seen that video, I'd definitely go check it out. Watch the video so you can see the results, because we did everything and measured it with an AFR, tach, and a vacuum gauge, see what was actually occurring with that carburetor when it was trying to meter fuel through a carburetor that was just too big for the boosters to properly meter fuel correctly. But if you really want to enjoy yourself, read some of the comments the folks left in there, because there are some people that still believe that it doesn't matter what size CFM carburetor it is, you can run it no matter what and the engine will be just fine. Even though we proved with empirical evidence that it's just not the case. The nice thing about using the AFR is it just doesn't lie. It tells you exactly what's going on with the engine, what it's seeing for fuel, and where it's struggling, what points it struggles, where it's running lean, where it may be running a little rich, where it's hard to control. But again, some folks just didn't believe it. So what I decided to do is to try to find a much bigger carburetor. And really, I was kind of lucky in the timing of this, because Edelbrock just released the 950 CFM. It's the biggest carburetor in their new VRS series, so we're going to give it a try. Brand new carburetor. I was the first one to get one. This is the first one you'll see live out in the world, and I'm pretty happy to have it, because this is going to be for the 67 Chevelle and the 540 when we're done with that car. Hopefully that's pretty soon. I can't guarantee when that'll be done, but that's what that carburetor is for. The 950 CFM carburetor, annular boosters, primary and secondary, and really it is designed for a race type application. No choke, very, very simple carburetor. It is the same as the other VRS carburetors. It is a bit taller than a standard Holley. I think it's 3/4 of an inch taller. Doesn't really matter for me. Plenty of room underneath the hood on the truck, and certainly plenty of room underneath the hood on the Chevelle with a cowled hood that it'll be just fine. But what we're going to do is first, the same as we did with the other video, is we're just going to leave it in its stock configuration. Now for the power valves that are in here, they're 4.5 on both ends. That's going to be a little challenging, I think, because as we saw in the last video on how power valves meter fuel and when they come in on timing and all that, but that was on a 650 CFM carburetor that's more suited for that application on that truck. So more than likely, this is going to prove to be a little more challenging. I'm going to go ahead and pop the bowl off here off the primary. I believe that the instructions have the size of the jets on there, but no knock on Edelbrock or Holley or whatever brand of carburetor it is. I always verify what's in there. You just never know. These are assembled by human beings, and mistakes happen. So let me separate the fuel line from it, get the primary bowl off, and we'll verify the jets that are in there. Got her knocked down, verified 4.5 power valve in the front and rear, 70 jets front and rear as well too. Also took just a quick peek at it. This is a 150 on the main well. Here is the metering block out of the 650. It's 140 on the main well, so that's how they're getting more fuel with that. I would like to see Edelbrock do that on the bigger side. Give me a 160. Maybe that's what the E85 carburetor is going to come with, but I'm sure it'll come with a larger main well. E85 carburetors or E85 period just needs more volume to get the same amount of energy out of it, so it's going to need a little bit more fuel. So now that we've verified at least what size everything is, let's put it back together. We'll talk about how we're going to test this real quick. One quick little detail on this carburetor: it was wet with Stoddard fluid when I took it apart, so they are wet flowing that. Got everything all put back together and set. Just another reminder, we're going to run this as it is right out of the box, just see what happens with it. Again, I know it's not going to meter fuel very well. We just know that from the last video that we did. What I will do, however, is I've got jets and I've got every power valve size known to man, so we can make those changes as well too. But we're going to take this kind of nice and easy. I'm going to just try to see how it works from there. The other thing with the VRS, and I've seen people struggle with this and talk about struggling with this, is they'll put too low profile of an air cleaner on here. The vents for the bulls are extremely important to make sure that air is getting in there correctly, and you don't want to interrupt that path of it. That is one of the main things in a carburetor of how a carburetor meters fuel. If you have a low profile air cleaner where the lid is very close to this and it doesn't give the air a good ability and a good stream to get in there, you're going to mess that up. So I'm going to probably put a taller element on. We'll see what it looks like when we get out to the truck, and also be advised that the carburetor stud is much bigger than standard, so we're going to have to get an air cleaner lid, drill that out. We should be good to go. So I think that pretty much covers it. Let's get this installed on the truck, and we'll start driving around and monitor AFR, vacuum, and RPM, and see where it leads us. We've got the 950 all hooked up, fuel line, everything was pretty simple. Not too complicated. I had everything here, so it wasn't that big of a deal. I gotta say, it looks pretty good on top of that motor, so I don't know, maybe the 650 will go back on there at some point, or I'll try it out and do some testing with it. She's a little erratic on the idle, which kind of expected, but seems to have calmed down a little bit. Dialed the fuel pressure back just a hair, just simply because I'm a little hesitant to give it too much fuel. Remember, it is a very big carburetor, so okay, let's take her for a test drive and see how that 950 does. Got the idle about as dialed in as it's going to get, but we're a little light on vacuum. Again, not something that I was not expecting, so it's kind of hunting around a little bit. So, I think that's where it's going to be, at least for now. So, all right, let's get this thing wrapped up, and we'll start taking for a test drive, see what happens. Whoa, very rich. Okay, off the throttle, very fat. It's kind of what I've been seeing. I've been driving this for maybe 20 minutes or so. Look how fat she is. Aggressive on the throttle. 60 miles per hour. All right. I think the first thing we're going to do is take some jet out of it. I think I'm going to take about 4 numbers out of the front. Leave the secondary alone for right now because I'm not really playing with it too much. Or I'm not driving in it that much. So let's take some primary jet out of it first, and we'll start there. All right, I took a lot of fuel out of it. Unfortunately, I went from 70 to a 66 jet and drove it still about the same. Unfortunately, the camera is shut off or something. I didn't capture it on the AFR, so I just dropped down to a 64, which is the smallest jet in my kit right now. I don't know where my other box is, so we're gonna have to hope that 64 is the magic number. So let's drive it and find out. Still way rich. We're on a 4.5 power valve and we shouldn't be open, so funny how it spikes all the way over on the lean side. Roll into the throttle there and see what we do. Power valve open. Completely off the gas. Very rich. Unfortunately, I think what I'm going to have to do is try to Look how far over we're spiking lean, which is what I expected it to do anyway. I'm partial throttle. I'm holding steady at 37, 38. Look how lean it got. It's not the jet. We're just trying to meter through the booster, and it's not drawing enough signal is probably the problem. I'm 100% certain that's the problem. Even with the 70 jet in there, I noticed as I was driving that we were getting into that really lean condition. Because again, the carburetor and the booster, as it's designed with the Venturi size, and more importantly, the booster size, and where it is in reference to that choke point, if you want to call it that in a Venturi, as the Venturi gets smaller, that area there is how the carburetor, it's the signal that it tells the booster that, hey, I'm demanding fuel, give it to me, and there's not enough of that. And so when you get into those cruise modes, it's very difficult to meter the right fuel because the booster needs more airspeed. It needs more drop, needs more pressure drop to pull the fuel through the jet, through the booster, into the carburetor, and down into the engine. And that's what you see on the AFR. Let's see if I can find my emulsion kit and air bleed kit, and maybe see if I can add some fuel in that first intermediate step, or take some air away, because if it's getting lean there because it's getting too much air through there, I don't know. So anyway, things to consider. Let's go back and think through this. Still really, really lean. See the histogram there of how aggressive that is and how fat it goes, or excuse me, how lean it goes. And then as we're rolling through different scenarios, completely off the gas now, and AFR settles out where it should be. It's pretty remarkable to watch that. All right, let me see if I can talk about this without getting into too much detail, because really we can go down a rabbit hole pretty quickly. So when I was mentioning earlier, thinking about changing the air bleeds on the top of the Edelbrock carburetor, this is what's called a 4-circuit carburetor. Get this out of the way. All right, so you've got an idle air bleed, an intermediate, and these two here are high-speed air bleeds for wide open throttle, higher RPM stuff. Right now, the only two that I want to concentrate on primarily is idle and this first intermediate bleed. Now, what I was thinking as I was sitting there in the parking lot is changing the air bleed. Remember we talked about earlier about the tubes here? So the vent tubes, if you have an air cleaner that the base is down really tight up against your tube, what you're doing is you're potentially changing the pressure that's inside the bowl. When the air goes through the Venturi, this low area pressure down here, it has to have that pressure up here that is seeing atmospheric pressure basically, so it has a room for, or the ability to move from a high pressure area to a low pressure area. That's how it goes through there. What you're doing with the air bleeds is you're changing how much air, and it can in some cases change how much fuel pushes through the metering block. Let's look at this metering block right here. So these here are the emulsion jets. Now, I'll put a picture up on the screen so you can see what a actual jet looks like and how small these emulsions are. They're very tiny. But what I'm going to do is, instead of changing the air bleed, I'm going to change the emulsion jet instead. I want to fatten that up a little bit, and I think by leaving the air bleed alone and adding some more fuel here, it may be the better solution. Fatten up that cruise RPM where we were having those really lean issues, and see if nothing else, what does it make a difference? Does it make any difference at all? Does it give us a little bit fatter fueling during that time period? What? But I don't want to get too wrapped up in that. I'll cover that in another video, and actually quite a few videos, because when you get into that level of tuning, It is extremely complicated, and it takes a long time to understand it. But is it hard? No. You just have to kind of follow some rules, because changing one will have an effect on the other. And everybody just assumes that by adding more air to the emulsion, that all you're doing is you're just changing how much air is getting into the system. And that is potentially it, but it also, because of that pressure we talked about, can change how much fuel is being pushed through there. So we have to be a little bit careful with that. So that's why I'm going to leave air bleed alone, and I'm going to go to the emulsion. So now that we have that figured out, we're kind of running out of ways to do this. Again, I didn't want to go down this far down the rabbit hole, because I wanted to just see basic adjustments that you could do at home without having a lot of knowledge in it, and just basic understanding that if you put a bigger jet in the primary or a bigger jet in the secondary, it affects all of the fueling on the primary side and the secondary side. And again, we're not going to do that as well too. We weren't really operating at that cruise RPM that we were at, so we're not going to change that power valve channel restrictor and add more fuel there, or try to take away fuel depending on what the situation was. No, we weren't into the power valve yet. The other side of that is we can make a power valve change and see if that helps out. I think once I make the emulsion change here, if that doesn't work, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the power valves. I'm probably going to plug the rear, and I'll probably go to a lot fatter, maybe an 8.5. I don't know if I'll go start at 6.5, but probably go at 8.5, because we'll see if it'll bring in the fueling a little bit quicker. So again, it's just all about timing when we're talking about when the fueling hits, which is in the intermediate circuit there we're trying to do. So we'll see if we can add some more power or more fuel in that enrichment system there, and see what happens. But let me do this. Now that we explained that, I'm going to make the emulsion jet change. We'll go drive it and see what happens. A little better. Yeah, I thought we corrected it, but it's a little bit better. I just don't like how it spikes all the way lean, 18, 19. It's pretty bad right there at 16, 17. And you can see we're not under much load. We're just cruising, light throttle, and we're not metering enough fuel through the system. Well, that's a bummer. It's kind of interesting how we're fighting that. Some of these cruise speeds, look how doggone lean we are, and then try to roll into the throttle a little bit. You're just trying to find that consistency. That's where we're struggling with it right now. I think we're just going to continue to fight that. I may change the emulsion again just to see if we can sort that out a little bit. I'm going to try a power valve change now. I think that's kind of our next step. Again, it's more of the easier type thing to make. It's more common. You don't have to have a $300 kit worth of bleeds and emulsions to do it. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to make a power valve change, and we'll see if we can help it out. But first, let's see if it'll do a burnout. Oh, guess that answers that question. Okay, let's not try to do a burnout. Let's just try and do a rolling start here, see what happens. She rolled over a little lean. See the spikes on the histogram? Not exactly enjoying what that looks like. All right, well, that's a problem. See us back into our lean condition again here. Again, we're in the intermediate circuit there. We should be fine. But that lean spot is just something I'm having one hell of a time trying to tune out of it. And again, it's because it's not metering enough fuel, and the changes we're making don't matter that much because you don't have enough pressure to pull it through there. So let's keep working with it and see if we can make some changes to it. I did what I don't normally do, and that's make two changes at once. So it's both power valves. So I went with the 8.5 on the front side on the primary. I blocked the secondary. Not necessary. I could have left the 4.5 in there really for what we're doing here. Part throttle, part drivability. We're not getting into the secondaries that much, and we're not dropping vacuum enough to trigger that secondary fueling. Well, let's see if a power valve change. Again, we're giving it every opportunity to work here, so just hoping that one of these things is going to help catch on, and maybe we'll learn something that I'm not expecting. But watch out for that big mud puddle. You don't want to do a burnout through that. See if I can roll into it, drop the vacuum a little bit. It did add a little bit more fueling there. Unfortunately though, when you try to sustain that, it's not allowing it. Let's see how a little speed helps. See how even at speed, it's still, throttle's open a little bit more. And we're still struggling to hold that. Well, we can put more jet back into it. Let's try that out. Don't know how much that's going to help, but let me put a little bit more jet into it, see if that helps it in that intermediate cruise. I guess that didn't help out a whole hell of a lot. One thing too with that lean, it's the same thing we ran into on the other video. As I try to roll into power, passing, speeding up, man, it's just so difficult. It just has no power. The main issue we see with this carburetor is there's not enough airspeed going through the venturi to meter the fuel properly. It's just very, very simple. That Bernoulli's principle, I can't change it. I can't make it act differently. It is what it is. And those boosters and that carburetor is designed for a much more higher cubic inch, more demand type of engine. And when you don't have the vacuum drop under the booster, or not enough of it anyway, you're not going to get it to meter fuel the way you want it to. So what it boils down to is it doesn't matter how much we try, how much we work on it, we're just not metering enough air through that system for it to pull fuel properly. One comment that I got on the last video I did was, well, the Rochester had a 750 CFM carburetor out from the factory. Okay, those do not meter fuel the exact same way that a Edelbrock style or Holley style or whatever type of carburetor that's an aftermarket carburetor, they don't meter fuel the same. Look at the primaries on a Rochester carburetor. See how small those primary bores are? It doesn't idle and run and cruise and drive on 750 CFM of carburetor. It's running on much, much, much less than that. Well, I hope that answers your question. I don't know that I'll be doing another one of these videos. That carburetor I bought for the Chevelle, it'll get cleaned up and thrown back into a box onto a shelf, and my God, hopefully the car will be done at some point in my life where I can get out and drive it again and enjoy it. But that is for a 540 cubic inch engine that I'm building, and it will be completely adequate for what it's going to be doing, because it's going to be a more power demand type of engine, not really a cruiser. So again, right application, right carburetor. If you'd like me to do more tuning videos on the VRS carburetor, I do have a 650 for this engine. It will probably run just fine. I think we could tune it actually fairly well, and then we could look at the differences between this video and that video if you want to look at what a 950 is compared to what the 650 is, which is way closer to what this thing needs. And I think I could get it to tune actually pretty well. I love the way that style of carburetor sounds. It usually generally sounds much different than an AFB style carburetor, but yeah, they're certainly a lot of fun anyway, and I'd be totally open to do a video with a 650 on here and showing you through the tuning process and getting it dialed in. So leave your comments down below. We'll talk to you guys on the next one. We'll see you.